Um, I mean, I think the biggest mistake that I've seen people make is, basically not doing enough research on the company itself. Um, they a lot of times, depending on what they're looking for, if they're looking for, the reputable mover or anything like that, they want to make sure that they're a licensed and bonded company. They have a DOT number, they have a PUCO number, all that good stuff. Otherwise, if you're just looking for your run of the mill, Craigslist labor guys for $50 an hour, there's two different sides of that. But most people that we want to deal with are the ones that are looking for the reputable mover that know what they're doing, that are licensed and insured and bonded. You really don't want to use a company that doesn't have those credentials, or else they have no liability, no responsibility to take care of you or anything like that. You're just paying the cheapest price. So the best thing to always ask is, are you licensed? Are you insured? What is your insurance? Get the details on that information so that way and ask questions on it too. Um, you know, I, some of my supervisors have gave me a hard time about it in the past with some other companies, but I've always been one that will bring up the insurance to a customer because it's important for them to understand what their rights and responsibilities are and what they have, with the contract they're signing with the mover. Um, you know, so that's the number one thing, is just do your research on the company and ask questions to who you talk to. Um, you know, for me, it's about trust and who you talk to. That's what I try to portray when I'm trying to, sell our company or book a move with a client, is that, I want them to trust me as an individual, that they can come to me with anything. So that's the biggest thing that, we want to make sure that they're looking at when they're looking for a mover.
Nice. So you brought up insurance. So explain that a little bit more. So if I call up Black Tie Moving Company and ask you guys if you have insurance, and somebody comes back and says yes, how do they know from a customer standpoint if the insurance is good or not? And you don't have to use your company, because I know your company has good insurance, but what would be like a red flag that somebody may say that should be a caution to somebody looking for a mover?
Probably, if they say it's included in the price and they're very vague about it, that's kind of a red flag. All reputable companies that are licensed have to carry a minimum of what we call 60 cents per pound valuation coverage. What that does is that covers everything we put on the truck and move, for 60 cents per pound, or whatever that piece is. So that's the minimum we have to carry. So if they're not saying that, then they're not even legal. They're not even legally doing what they're required to do. So if they don't say the 60 cents per pound, that would be a red flag. Some companies have different types of insurance that they carry. That's not necessarily 60 cents per pound. Me personally, that's what we carry at Black Tie, is the 60 cents per pound, but we also we try to go above and beyond, and they always want to ask a follow-up question with that. Like they say, basically, if something gets damaged, are you really only going to write me a check for 6 cents per pound? Or are you really, or are we going to try to, do a little bit more for us in certain scenarios? There's some scenarios where we do have to do that and do the 60 cents per pound, but if it's like a minor damage or a scrape or something like that, most companies have their own vendors that they'll put in place that are going to come out and do repairs for them, instead of just writing checks. So you want to just make sure you ask some follow-up questions. But again, if they're not saying the 60 cents per pound, right away, then they're not a licensed or insured company. So that's the bare minimum that we are required by law to have to carry through the DOT.
No, it makes sense. So let me ask you this too. So I had a buddy 4 months ago that was moving, and he called what he thought was a moving company, but it ended up being a broker. And the broker brokered out the deal. Well, they underquoted drastically, I guess. And the day of moving, the company that was coming out was saying how it was going to be a different price than what he was quoted. And he ended up canceling the moving company, but because he paid through a broker, he didn't get a refund. And I guess, do you have any knowledge that you can share there on somebody maybe not calling a broker, calling companies direct? And I know that you've brought up in the past, and you can shed light on this, but how to make sure somebody's not getting underquoted, and what you guys maybe do to protect people on when they work with you.
Sure. Yeah. So as far as brokers, I'm not an expert on the brokers. I've never worked in that type of field in the industry. But the one thing is, depending on the type of move you're looking for, you're most likely going to find a broker when you're moving out of state. If you're moving out of state, you're going to find people associated with the large van lines and things like that are gonna broker out to them. But even with those, what you'll want to do is just request an in-home estimate. Don't try to do anything over the phone or anything like that, especially if it's a whole house. Just say you want an in-home estimate, and if they don't do those, then that's kind of a red flag saying that, okay, this is a broker that they're probably just going to try to combine my shipment with others. You're going to get a better price up front, but it's going to end up still costing you more, and you're going to have probably a 2-week window of delivery on when you're going to get your stuff. So you'll want to, if we're dealing with this, obviously customers that are going to be moving their whole homes, that's the best thing to always do is just requesting a home estimate. Don't even bother trying to quote over the phone with anybody, unless for a fact you're calling a local company that that they're not brokering out to anybody else. So, and then the other thing, what was the other question you said?
Well, when it comes to underpricing, so, my example, and it was a personal thing for me, but last time I moved, which was 10 years ago, I called the moving company direct, and it wasn't you guys because I don't even think you guys were around at that time.
Mhm.
But I called them direct. They came out and looked at my house. They put down that it was going to be 2 movers and it was going to take X amount of time. Well, miraculously, when they showed up, they're like, "Oh, we needed 3 people," and they ended up filling up an entire semi truck.
Mhm.
And my price was a couple $100 more. And the sad thing is, I even helped them the whole time because they weren't moving quick enough.
Right.
So I was just, watching their time frame and seeing how they were moving stuff. So I ended up helping the whole time and ended up paying more. And I wasn't hiring them to do any of the moving myself.
Right. So yeah, so with that, for me, for the consumer, what they're going to want to do again is just to ask as many questions as possible up front with what they're looking at. If you kind of get that feeling like, okay, this is going to take more than 2 or 3 guys, then ask them about that. But if they're going to come out, and that's where I go back to saying, make sure you do an in-home survey like you said you had, and then really look when they send you that quote or that bid, make sure you're looking at those details as well. The consumer, looking at that, it should have the breakdown of how many guys are going to send out, how long it should take, and things like that. And the consumer just needs to ask questions about that pertaining to that. Me personally, again, going back to what I do is, I personally try to guarantee my quotes when it comes to how long I think it's going to take. And then I work with the customer. So it goes back to that trust issue that you got to have with whoever you're dealing with from a moving company standpoint. If you get that feeling that like this guy's just doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's underquoting this, and that's where you want to get multiple quotes. I encourage people I talk to get multiple quotes from multiple companies. That way you can really see the range that you're seeing in prices. Some companies are going to give you a flat rate price. Some companies are going to give you an hourly rate, but give you a price range based off what they see. So if you can see that all 3 quotes are reasonably in the same area, that it's pretty accurate. Then you go back to, okay, who did you like the most from a company standpoint? What research did you do on them as with the reviews and what they do and how they differentiate themselves? And then you go back to the person that was in your home with you or who you talked to or dealt with. Who do you trust more? Because you're going to want to contact that person all the time with questions or concerns, or, even on move day, if things are going bad on move day, you can contact that person and feel good about the fact that they're going to make it right and figure it out. So, those are, getting multiple quotes is probably the most important thing, in the planning process, because you really don't want to just stick to one person unless you've used them in the past, then, that's where we get our repeat business and referrals and stuff. But if you're a first time person using a moving company, you really want to get multiple quotes sent to you.
No, that makes sense. That's actually great advice. So you bring up something else that I want to ask you about. When you're going out and getting quotes, how far in advance from the date of move
Mm-hmm.
do you need to start working on that? Because everybody seems to wait till the last minute in most cases. And
Right.
what's your expectation that you'd like to set there?
So on average, for moves, I can book moves 2 to 3 weeks out. So you'll want to start planning and getting quotes. I'd say at least 30 days ahead of time would probably be safe. The moving industry is seasonal. 50 to 60% of our moves are probably between the months of April and September. So that's where we're doing the bulk of our business. So if you're looking to move, which most people are in those months, you'll want to do it sooner rather than later. 30 days is probably good to start your, making your decisions and figuring out. So, before that 30-day mark, you'll want to start getting your quotes and getting everything figured out. Again, going back to, it depends on the size of your move. If you're moving from a 2-bedroom apartment to your first house, we're probably going to need a little bit less lead time than we would if you have a 4,000 square foot house, and you want a full service pack and move quote.
How much does it, well, I guess it's probably dependent on everything that's in the home, but if you guys are just picking stuff up and moving it versus packing it and then moving it, is it typically double or triple the price? Is there any math to that, or is it something that you really have to come see?
A good gauge is on average, I'd say double. It'll be double the price. You're dealing with a whole nother day of work. But you're also dealing with materials as well. So the material charge, and then the extra labor and the extra day, and then the move itself. So on average, depending on home size, a full service move is 2 to 3 days, to where it's full pack, and then get everything prepped and loaded and delivered. So depending on where they're moving, how far away they're moving, it's 2 to 3 days. So you're looking at anywhere from double to double and a half price wise.
That's not too bad though when you think about it. What is your guys' move day expectation? Like, what do you need homeowners to do for you?
Just be prepared, be ready. If they're packing themselves, all reputable movers will only move boxes that are closed and sealed and packed. And just having things ready to go. I always like to recommend making sure you want to have a couple of your last minute boxes open, that whether you're going to move those yourself in your car, or if you're going to pack those right the last second for the movers, but you'll want the majority of everything to be packed and ready to go. And then have a set area set aside, whether it's a room you're not using much of, or the garage, or something to where it's a do not touch area. Like we're not touching this. We're moving it ourselves. So if you're moving some high value items, or whatever you're going to be doing yourself, or if it's the cable equipment that you have to leave at the house, or your garage door openers, keys, things like that, you'll want to leave that out in the open, or out in a separate room. So that way the movers know not to do that, because again, for most movers, you're paying them by the hour. So you don't want them coming to find you to ask questions. Does this go? Does this go? Does this go? I've even had, sometimes if we're doing moves where they're leaving a lot of furniture at the house, I've told them to use Post-its or sticky notes to, say stay or go. That way the movers know what they need to go take. That way, again, the more times they got to come find you to ask questions, the more time it's going to take for the move to get completed efficiently. So, just being as prepared as you possibly can, and then having everything packed and ready to go.
Would that be one of the main things that people screw up on? Is they're not ready when you guys show up, or?
Yeah, I'd say that. Especially if they haven't used a mover before, a lot of people underestimate the stuff that they have and the stuff they think they're going to be able to move on their own. I always, when I meet somebody and I'm at their house, if they're in a good sized house and they're like, oh, we're going to move all the boxes ourselves, or the little stuff ourselves, because we're not moving very far. Like, well, just remember, you can probably only get like 3 or 4 boxes in your car, even though you have an SUV. You're not going to get that much stuff in there, I promise.
Right.
So just keep that in mind as far as the trips you're taking. But yeah, it's the underestimation of what they need to do ahead of time to be prepared for the movers is probably the biggest thing that happens to us.
So let me ask you this too, with like my dresser drawers. I remember when I was moving that stuff, they told me not to unpack those.
Right.
Because obviously they can move it with all the clothes in it. But like, is there a certain weight limit when people are putting stuff in boxes, or anything like that you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what you're packing, we have different. There's different size boxes for a reason. So you have your small boxes, which in the industry we call them either book box or a 1.5 or a small box is what we call them. Then you have your medium, large, and then your dish boxes. The dish box is the biggest box besides your wardrobe for your hanging clothes, but the dish box is going to hold a lot of your breakable items because it's a thicker box. So one of the most expensive boxes. The small boxes is if you have a lot of books or a lot of DVDs, whatever stuff that if you put it in a big box would weigh like 300 pounds. That's what the small box is for. It's also great for drawer contents in the kitchen. And any like small knickknack breakables that you have, you can pack in a small box as well with some paper because you don't want to put that in a bigger box mixed in with a bunch of heavy dishes. And then medium boxes and large boxes are great for your closets, your shoes, things like that. Anything that can have a little weight to it, but you can still get a lot of stuff in it. Like a large box is great for towels and linens and those types of things. So you can get a ton of stuff in there, and it's not going to be very heavy once you pack it up. So it's there's lots of different things that those boxes can hold. You just have to be strategic about it to where you can't put a bunch of books in a large box because it's going to weigh 400 pounds and it's probably going to break. Same thing with canned goods. We want to put canned goods in a small box. So you just need to be strategic about what you put in each box based off the size of it.
No, it makes sense. Where do people where do you suggest people get boxes? Because you always hear go to the liquor store, go to the grocery store, ask those types of people. But do you guys, for your dish boxes or anything like that, do you guys sell those or how does that work?
Yeah, pretty much every reputable moving company is going to sell boxes. They're going to sell their own boxes that are labeled and printed with their logo on it, their phone number, and everything. They're pretty comparable to price to your Lowe's and Home Depot as well. We don't try to make a ton of money on them. We're probably going to be a little bit higher than them. But still, um, it's for us, our boxes are probably better quality because of where we get them from than your Home Depot or Lowe's. They're going to probably be a little bit thinner, but really it depends on what they're looking for.
No, it makes sense. You brought up in the past to me about people being, well, actually, I'm gonna back up real quick. When it comes to pianos, guns, collectibles, like stuff like that, what's your rule of thumb or what's the expectation you set with people that have those sort of items?
So pianos and everything are fine. Like we can move all sorts of pianos, uprights, grand pianos, everything. We have all the equipment to move those properly as a professional moving company. Gun safes. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Gun safes, because we don't. Well, yeah, guns and ammunition we cannot move.
Okay.
But we can move gun safes that are emptied out. But just all the ammunition and the firearms have to be moved by the client. And then gun safes, our threshold is probably 500 pounds on the gun safes, especially if stairs are involved. I actually, me personally, I have a vendor that'll come out and move larger gun safes than that with the proper equipment and automatic lifts and things like that for a pretty fair price as well. He's out of Akron, Ohio. But most moving companies have those types of people as well. You kind of call it like a special products division that some companies have, where they'll come out and move specific items that as a moving company we're not equipped or we don't want to be equipped to have the liability to move it because we're already carrying so much liability to move everything else. So we've got away from moving some items like that, but especially with gun safes. And hot tubs, we don't move. I don't think any moving companies move hot tubs anymore, and I don't think many people are moving them anymore either. They're just leaving them at the house, but we don't move hot tubs anymore either. So there are specific items that we just don't do based off the weight. So those are a couple of the more common ones.
So do pool tables fall into that too?
Pool tables will move. Again, I have all moving companies are going to have, or they should have their own, what we call third party.
Yep.
So what they do is we just, I know what they're going to charge to take apart a pool table and put it back together, or a home gym, or a treadmill or elliptical that has come apart. So I try to just include it in their quote. So
Okay.
that way they don't have to pay multiple people, multiple vendors, for their move. They're already paying all this amounts of money for their relocation as it is. It's just to try to make it as easy as possible. So, and they'll come out on move day, well, whether we're there, or they'll come the day before and take apart the pool table. They'll crate up the slate that needs to get moved properly, and move the pool table, and then any other equipment, home gyms or anything like that we don't take apart, we'll third party, and I'll include in the bill.
Okay. What other items outside of guns, ammo, and I think propane tanks, you guys probably wouldn't carry either, but is there
Yeah,
other big
yeah,
red
anything
flags?
flammable pretty much is a good rule of thumb. Anything that can explode. So even like hairspray cans, aerosol cans like that, we can't take. So again, when talking with a client or a customer, potential customer, we let them know that if you're packing yourselves, do not pack any aerosol cans or flammable liquids or paints or anything like that in there, and the ammunition, and then no guns or ammo as well, and then propane tanks. Yeah, those are the most common household items that we can't take, and alcohol as well.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. What does it take to work with you guys? Like, is there a certain deposit up front that you pay and then the remainder
Mm-hmm.
on move
Yeah.
day? Or can you talk about that real quick?
We require a $150 deposit per truck, to book the move. So that just reserves the truck for that particular day that they're scheduling. So if it's a multi-truck move, it's a two-truck move, it's a $300 deposit. And that amount will go towards the final price of the move. So that's already on file, already paid. So whatever the final price is, we take the 150 out towards that. So, and that's all it requires is just that one deposit. It's refundable up to 14 days before the move, um, unless there's other circumstances that come up that out of their control or anything like that. I try to work with them as best as we can, but so because we did, like, obviously with everything going on right now, we probably refunded a lot of deposits because people were either scared to move or unable to move with everything going on. But yeah, that's all that's required to schedule a move.
Okay. And then I think I know the answer to this, but is it expected by the movers to receive a tip once they're done?
It's not it's not an expectation. I will say, being in the industry for a long time, for a long time, it has kind of been very common,
Mm-hmm.
rather than not. But what I tell all customers is, like, yes, they do appreciate the tips, because it's a very personal thing to come in and move somebody's belongings. So I think that's why it's kind of grown into a very high tipping industry. But by no means is it a requirement. Of any move. These guys, they do make good hourly wages. They're not servers or waiters that make $2 an hour and rely on tips. But it is something that over the years I think has really grown into a pretty high tipping industry. Based off what the customer is able to do. But by no means is it a requirement.
No, it makes sense. My big thing is there's people out there that wonder if they need to tip or not, and you just kind of hit the nail on the head. It's something that I think people should always do, but
Mhm.
everybody's a little different on that. Bringing up the fact of employees, you brought this up before that some companies subcontract their labor out. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah. So some companies are going to, it's like a whole nother industry when it comes to temporary labor in the moving industry. So when people are moving out of state, there's literally guys that do this full time, where they wait for drivers to call them, and they get paid cash to help them unload the truck. And they're all very reputable guys and very good guys. For me personally, like, I've made contacts with many people out of state, and even here in Ohio and Cleveland, to where it's like I only use guys that I've used in the past and trusted in the past. But I can't say the same for everybody else. But I do know we do work hard to make sure we're using very reputable people. There's actually a Facebook page dedicated to it, where it's just movers all over the country that are looking for help and things like that. Now, the other side of that is, yes, there is companies that use temporary laborers or temporary contractors, even on the local side, which they shouldn't have to be doing. They should be bringing in their own employees and training them the ways of their own company and what they're doing, and making sure they're background checked and everything like that, which is what we try to do too. But I know not everybody does that, but so that is one of the questions that they'll want to ask when they deal with any moving company, is making sure that they're their employees, that they're not subcontracted out to, especially on the local side. There really shouldn't be. It should be very, very rare that a company has to use a contract employee on the local side. It does happen sometimes, but it's very rare. And again, it's, for me, speaking for myself, I only use people I've used in the past. So
that makes sense. So if somebody's interested in working with you guys or getting a quote, what's the best way to reach out, get in contact? Is it reaching out to you directly? Is it going to the website?
you can either go to the website and fill it out online, but I always say, for a company like us that has multiple locations, we do have a call center that deals with every location. So if anybody's seeing this, they can always contact me directly, by my cell phone number. I have a direct line that we can put on there. One second. Yeah, my direct line is 216-243-6219. That's a line straight to my phone that goes. But yeah, they can go to our website, blacktiemoving.com, and they can fill out an online request as well. And then one of our sales reps would be in contact with them as well. So those are the two easiest ways to get our information.
Cool. And I know you're running short on time today. So the question that I have is there a story you'd like to leave with, or any other piece of information that would be helpful to somebody that's getting ready to move?
I think the biggest thing that I say, that I've said a few times already, is I can't say enough about the trust that you have to have with the people that you're going to be working with for this particular project, for the home, for this person. It is the most personal thing that people, I think, deal with, because we're in their homes, we're dealing with their personal belongings. So don't ever be afraid to ask too many questions or anything like that, and just do the research on it, and just really trust the person that you're dealing with. And always have a point of contact with the company, whatever company you deal with. Make sure you have a direct point of contact with somebody that will answer your questions in a timely manner, and make sure that you trust the person and what you're doing.
Nice.